All right, welcome in. Cube Show Podcast, college football podcast that comes to you on Sundays now, sometimes. Well, we should be here Sunday here moving forward. Getting through this next week of college football playoff games, the semifinal coming up this week/weekend. We will get you the preview out, brought to you by Prize Picks, probably on Wednesday and maybe Tuesday. Try to get that out for you a little bit early because, of course, you've got Notre Dame, Penn State in the Orange Bowl on Thursday. And then we'll come back next Sunday, a week from today, and give you that recap of that and begin to get in some SEC stuff as well. We're going to stay college football playoff today, probably stay college football playoff next Sunday, and then we'll definitely talk about it and have other thoughts on it then, but then we'll get back into some SEC. We are going to wrap every SEC bowl game. That's going to happen, just not going to happen right now. I was in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. You guys understand everything that happened there. There was a lot going on. Ended up having to go do radio show, 3:00 kick, fly to Dallas that night, radio show, 3:00 kick for First Responder Bowl. So it's just been a little bit hectic and out of whack, but we'll try to get back on schedule. And we are going to go through every SEC bowl game, let you know what we saw, what we thought. Just probably not today. We're going to focus in on those quarterfinal games today, and then you'll get the matchup edition brought to you by Prize Picks coming up here in a couple of days. As you know, each and every week, we're brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We love them. We snack on them. We have them. The beautiful jar is always here in studio as we're back. So it's good to be back, good to be back home. As I mentioned, we were in New Orleans, and what a game. It ended up being just an awesome game. Tough situation, unfortunate situation with the terrorist attack there in New Orleans. I actually had to do post-Fiesta Bowl radio until midnight. So, of course, you can't just fall right asleep after that. I was up until probably 1 in the room, went to sleep. Phone starts ringing early the next morning. Finally answered. It's my wife. She's asking, "Are you okay?" I didn't even know what she was talking about. Put on the news, and then, of course, submerged in that entire thing for the next couple of hours, trying to figure out the status of the game. They're going to move the game, when they were going to move the game to. So that moved our coaches' calls up for our game to that day. And then, of course, the game was then pushed. And I think we changed our travel itinerary 3 different times. Thought we might have to go out of Biloxi, out of Mobile, and then we got on Southwest that night after the game. Just hate it for the folks down there. It's unfortunate. And we think about them and their families. And some of those individuals just way too young to be gone for something that's just so senseless. Hate it. And it was odd that next day to the one time I did leave the hotel, I just needed to get outside, need to walk around, to not see a lot of traffic moving around, not see a lot of people moving around, especially that time of year. New Orleans is supposed to be this vibrant city with energy and people moving around and just excited to be doing whatever they're doing. And you didn't have that. It hurt the crowd a little bit too, because I think a lot of people went home. I saw multiple people on local news saying, "We're not staying, we're leaving." Don't let that affect you, especially with that place, because it's a cool place, obviously. We'll get into the games and we'll cover those, because a lot of what we said about this game was accurate. There were some things that happened that we didn't think were going to go that way. Gunnar Stockton, I thought, was great. For the most part, I thought he handled his business, did what he was asked to do. You didn't see a ton of confusion with him in the game. I thought he made pretty good throws a lot of the times, kept some plays alive. But goodness gracious, he didn't get protection. And it really made the choice to kind of go for points there late in the first half puzzling to me. We were on the radio broadcast, Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, myself. And I asked the question immediately. I said, "You haven't been able to protect him. Why? What makes you think you can go 2-minute offense where guys are going to be teeing off up front? You know they're pass rushing, and think that you can get away with that." And whether it was Xavier Truss, Ernest Green, Monroe Freeling, the left tackle spot was essentially a turnstile, and the Notre Dame pass rushers had them a day. And it wasn't a situation where I thought Georgia was able to generate a lot on the ground whenever they wanted to. But the mistakes were critical. And that's essentially mistakes in special teams, I think, ended up costing Georgia this football game. You got an opportunity there before the half when that game was going to be 13-3. No, you don't want it to be a 2-score game, but you find a way. You wanted to cut it down, but you had the opportunity to just take that knee, go in. Notre Dame gets the ball, start the second half, and then, of course, special teams, another massive play, and you get a 98-yard kickoff return from Jaden Harrison. And the life was taken out of that building at that point, because there were a lot of Georgia fans that made a lot of noise. There's a good Notre Dame crowd there. But how this game went for the majority of it, I thought the protection issue was something that it wasn't corrected, and I don't know how much Bobo could have done to correct it. They had the screen game out. They probably didn't have enough shot plays early. My understanding was that Arian Smith was going to get some balls down the field, had one big catch for 67 yards. Georgia moved the ball at times. I mean, you go look at kind of the totals of this game, and I mean, from a total yards perspective, Georgia, 296, Notre Dame 240. And it's only the second college football game that a team has won with under 300 total yards. The 2018 Sugar Bowl in Alabama beat Clemson. Alabama won that game, under 300 yards of offense. But on the ground, a little bit different. 35 for 150 for Notre Dame, 29 for 62 for this Georgia football team. It just wasn't there. And I think part of it was kind of how the game was going. And it's one of the things that I appreciate the most about this Notre Dame football team. And there are certain points in times that you see coaching staffs, players, sides of the football that are just in sync. They just have an idea of what they need to do to help the team win. And trust me, I had multiple games that I called this year where it was pretty apparent that one side was trying to do their thing, and it wasn't just to help the team win games. It was to do their thing and put up numbers and put on a show, and sometimes it backfired on them. Not this football team. I think this is 2 consecutive playoff games that Mike Denbrock has kind of sat back and said, you know what? We don't have to do anything else. We're going to shift down, and we're going to go win this game this way. I thought that the plan that Al Golden put in place was good. It was good. It had to be aggressive. It was going to be a lot of movement. And I thought no Riley Mills meant Georgia was at least going to attempt to go at the teeth of this defense. Don't think they tried it enough. You had a 3-man defensive tackle rotation going in this game for Notre Dame. Howard Cross, Heinisch, and Gabriel Rubio were going to be the 3 that played inside. And later in the game, if you think that this was any kind of a fluke or flukish or fluky, and the people that are talking about, the kid who bumped into the official, the whole deal, like how big that was, just rewind here and go back to Riley Mills. The best defensive lineman in this game was out for Notre Dame. Howard Cross it appeared to be an air cast on his ankle. He came out later in the game and didn't go a couple of series. Xavier Watts, I'm pretty sure, separated his shoulder because he came running off the field, not moving one of his arms, went into the tent, and the next series comes back in. So, I mean, after what happened to Notre Dame at the beginning of the season with all the offensive linemen and those guys being, I mean, it's remarkable to think about what this team has accomplished with what happened across the course of the year. I mean, you lost your best corner early in the year. And now you got a freshman in Leonard Moore who looks like a damn edge defender that's out there, knocking guys down on the outside. They play great team defense. They are the best tackling football team that I've watched all year. And I think, too, they might be I've told you guys before, coverage is my weakness. Secondary play is my weakness. I try to use McElroy and Roman and anybody like Jordan Rogers to try to get better at it. I work on it. I try to learn more about it. But it wasn't the focus of my football life for a long time. So I feel like I know a lot of the other areas a lot better. But they're one of, if not the best coverage team I've watched this year. And a lot of teams you can't really put against them because they don't play near as much man as this team does. But you just go back to these last couple of games, which have been massive games. There's not a lot of receivers that are wide open. Interestingly enough, Al Golden told us at Media Day that Cash Jones was the guy on this team he was most worried about. And who comes wide open on that flood concept with the wheel route down the sideline, but Cash Jones, and ends up scoring a touchdown. I don't think Bobo called a terrible game. I just don't think that they could get a push with the middle. And then I don't think they could hold up against a pass rush. Junior Tuliamaka was unbelievable for Notre Dame. Dude was bull rush, speed rush around the edge, game, stunts. I mean, he was a terror for this team. And then they'll take Jalen Sneed, linebacker, line him up outside. He can get you with a speed rush. Bryce Young can get you with the speed rush. It was just a massive problem for Georgia. They couldn't live in second and third and long because they weren't going to be able to thrive in the drop back game. Notre Dame had 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. Jack Kaiser on a couple of blitzes got close to getting home and then actually got a sack at one point. He was super active. He had a nice game. Heinisch had the sack on the game where he comes from like being a nose guard looping all the way around right tackle to be able to get that sack that basically ends the game for Georgia. Like, that shouldn't happen. One of the worst bodied defensive linemen in college football. Nothing personal against him. It's just that's what it is. He's 6'1", 280. And by the way, he wears 41. That doesn't help. Sorry, Roman, but that's not going to help your look as a D tackle, I don't think. Either way, he plays his rear end off, plays hard. RJ Oben got one off the edge. They play great team defense. They have a great understanding of who's going to be where, and they played lights out. And I think that when they knew they got a big special teams play, and when they knew they got a 2-for-1 from a points perspective, they probably throttled back. And I think it's why Georgia got some of the yards that they did a little bit later in the game. Gunnar Stockton hit and fumbled there. He had 2 fumbles. He lost one. ATN loses a fumble. That was big. Those turnovers, just not going to be able to overcome those, specifically when you're not running the football, because that gives the defense areas to, you can key in on different things, do different things. Dylan Bell had a pretty good game, 6 for 33, but then he had the big drop down the field. Like you saw in this game, perfect example of why they led the nation in drops. There's still a problem in this one. And then offensively for Notre Dame, I was really impressed with the physicality. Did they blow that defense off the ball? No, they didn't. It wasn't like that, but I don't think that they were outmatched physically in this game. First off, you have a quarterback that just is a gamer, that just knows how to work things, manage things, operate things. Like he operates this offense really well, but he operates the pocket really well. There's one that I tweeted out where he's kind of rolling left and he fits the ball in like tight coverage, like boom, and it's a completion. But there's so many more where he just kind of moves and all of a sudden he throws it away. Or he moves and it's a 4-yard gain when it could have been a sack. Or he moves and he kind of dumps it off last second and it's a 6-yard gain. He saves them from catastrophe plays and turns them into somewhat positive plays, even though they're not 80-yard gains. They don't have to be. Those continue drives. Those keep teams off the field. And it keeps that defense on the field for Georgia. And I felt like that group looked like it was a little bit worn down later. Like he was only 15 of 24 for 90 yards. Had one touchdown pass that was right there on that RPO fake where I thought he did a good job keeping it in the belly of the back, coming up and popping it into the end zone. It was a really nice call by Denbrock. And the one thing that Marcus Freeman told me at media day, before the game when I talked to him, halftime coming out when I talked to him, he hammered this every single time, is staying aggressive. We have to stay aggressive. We have to be aggressive. We have to continue attack. He told me halftime, we're going to treat the second half like we're down. We have to continue to go with this football team. And they did that. I thought they did that. Riley Leonard, 14 carries for 80 yards. Once again, he had the one nice run down the right side, but his long run was 32 yards. The longest reception from Notre Dame was 14 yards, Jordan Faison. I thought they did a good job using the screen game, more so not to gain yards, but to get the defensive linemen moving out. Because I think they wanted to try to make that group move, make that group run. He didn't hold on to the ball long enough for some of that pass rush to be able to get there, because Georgia had some wins in pass rush situations. I thought Jalen Walker had a couple of nice wins. He bust through the running back one time in protection. Oh, by the way, Jeremiah Love also missed half this game with a knee injury. So for the excuse makers, there are none. It's not a real thing. He got beat. Also, I thought Damon Wilson had a couple of nice reps. Warren Brinson had a couple of nice reps, getting close to the quarterback, but they only got him to the ground once. And you think about what the mindset was going into this game of what Georgia was probably going to do, what it could be, what it was going to look like. Georgia had 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss in this game. That was it. I thought Pat Coogan at center played his rear end off. Thought he had an awesome game, had the big block on the corner late when he pulled out. There were 2 short yardage situations that he got movement. And 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, whatever it is, you don't need a ton of movement. You get a little bit of a push and you're going to be good. And you're going to be, once again, continue drives. So Notre Dame 1 time of possession. They were 3 for 3 on field goals. Mitch Jeter hit all 3 of them, which had been a massive problem for them at certain points in the season. You get a kickoff return for touchdown. Georgia goes 2 for 12 on 3rd down. Notre Dame had 10 flags also. Georgia only had 5. But they ran the football. They were dominant with 3rd down defense, and they converted special teams. You made your field goals, and you got a kickoff return for touchdown. Not only that, but the one special teams when you get Georgia to jump off sides, I know what Kirby said after the game, but when you're coming off of a timeout, you are able to substitute that way. It is within the rules. Also, snapper did not address the football. So those 2 things allowed Notre Dame to pull off one of the most intelligent moves I've seen in a football game in a long time. Because watching it there live, it wasn't about the substitution part of it. It wasn't about who was in, who was out. It was about creating panic. And I understand. Again, I heard what Kirby said after the game. And by the way, thoughts and prayers with the Smart family. I hated to hear about his father passing. But watching it live, the guys running onto the field, running off to the field, I'm just telling you, it was not a calm situation. And when you're panicked like that, you don't think about the task at hand as much and you lose a little bit of focus. And I think ultimately that's why Notre Dame was able to pull it off. And that shut it down. That ended the game. I thought Notre Dame blocked well. I thought they tackled well. They didn't make massive mistakes, and Georgia did. And essentially, it felt like all Notre Dame had to do is go in and match the physicality in this game, and they might be okay. Limit the explosives, match the physicality, and you were going to be okay. You had the Arian Smith 62-yard receptions, the Cash Yard 32-yard touchdown run. Nate Fraser had a 28-yard run. They had more than Notre Dame did, but they also made the mistakes on top of that with the turnovers and giving up the long plays on special teams. So it was just a well-coached game. And once again, I think the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, because Al Golden got less aggressive as the game went on, because he understands that that's rolling the dice. You're aggressive up front. There's a good chance you're going to have somebody bust one on you because you're out of a gap. He got a little bit away from that, allowed his defense to kind of float, still play man, come off, make plays. I talked to him about his guys looking like they're in man coverage and then exiting to be in run support. He talked to me about how they coach that. It's a big part of what they do. But just a couple of other notes on Notre Dame. I talked to Riley Leonard for a long time at Media Day. Had no idea the low-key sense of humor this kid has. Like, hilarious. And just bright, funny. You can tell why he's a team guy. He actually told us that his girlfriend took headshots of his teammates and they would do quizzes at night over who all his teammates were, because he knew he was the quarterback and he wanted to be friends with these guys. He wanted to know his teammates and know about them. But I think that shows you kind of what he is and what he's all about. Tight end group for Notre Dame helped a lot, had a good game. It was just, I thought it was a team effort because it turned over to Jared Price at running back and he had to be the guy. And then he was the guy. 10 carries for 37 yards. He had to kind of do some of the heavy lifting late, but he made a couple plays out of the backfield where he had to give him something, and he did. So it was an interesting game to watch, but I think it was. And I asked Marcus Freeman at halftime, this is the exact style fight you want, isn't it? And he said, he just kind of grinned. He wouldn't agree to it, but I kind of figured that this is what he wanted and what he needed going into this game to be able to get the win. So Notre Dame gets that win in the Sugar Bowl. Great game, great scene. Once again, hated what happened in New Orleans. Unfortunate for that city and for those people, those families and the victims. We hate that. But I was glad that they were able to move on the next day and show, hey, you're not going to hold us down very long. We're going to put this game on. It's going to be great. So that opponent would come the night before in the Fiesta Bowl with Penn State and Boise State. Top to bottom felt like Boise just outmatched, really and truly. I thought Drew Aller was efficient. I thought they did a great job of not asking him to do a whole ton, but he had some nice throws in this game. The pass that he floated to Tyler Warren in the corner of the end zone, I thought it was a great toss. Even the one that Tyler Warren went up to get, I thought was a nice throw. You put it where he could go get it. And that's going to be kind of the story moving forward with Penn State, is just, does anybody have an answer for him? Because if not, they're going to be tough to beat. With Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton running the way that they did, 17 for 134 for Allen, 12 for 87 for Singleton. Just a dominant rushing performance, and it came less on gap scheme stuff, more on zone. I thought the Boise State defensive line was aggressive, sometimes maybe too aggressive, but it's hard to say that because when you go back and watch it, there's a little three-man stunt between the two inside linebackers and a D tackle that worked all three times they ran. I believe it was just the first quarter, maybe early into the second quarter. Those two linebackers would loop in the two A gaps, the D tackle would depart, and Penn State didn't pick it up. They couldn't figure it out. But then they got to that zone scheme. Boise State aggressive up front, run stunts, looping guys, one in, one around. And all of a sudden, Katron Allen, patient, boom, north and south. And they didn't have the bodies on the back end to even attempt to make the tackles. It was a good game plan for Penn State. I liked how they kind of moved the pieces around a little bit to get the different surfaces to be able to run into. But you didn't. I mean, Drew Aller did lose the one fumble. I couldn't tell if he pulled it too early or if it was off the back's elbow. Either way, that mesh read didn't work. You give the ball back to Boise. And I'll say this, a lot of people are like, told you so with Ashton Genty, 30 for 104. All right. One of the tougher 104s I've seen in a long time. because that dude did not have a ton of space to run into. But he made his own yards a lot of the time. And we talked about it on the show the last couple of weeks. That offensive line is not dominant. It's not great. People would see the numbers and say, man, they must have a great back and a great O-line. I haven't really thought they're great. But I do think Maddox Madsen tried to press a little bit too much. Now, late in the game, you knew he kind of had to do some of that stuff. But he needed to be somebody that when he found some one-on-ones, take those shots, but don't give the ball back. He throws 3 interceptions, even though he goes for 304. Matt Lauder, the tight end we told you about, 4 for 96 and a touchdown. Some of that, though, was kind of trying to play catch up, and it just wasn't going to be there. The Penn State defensive line had a really nice day. Couple of these guys that are just fun to watch, and they can strike and shed and take you on one-on-one situations, or they can just kind of toss you and get out of there and be done with it. But they have a really good way of making life uncomfortable for people inside. Like Zane Durant, 28, he can kind of get you in there and make life difficult. Devon J. Thomas is somebody who would not be fun to try to block because he's massive and he's got good hands and good technique. And then some of the movement just ended up working. Some of the movement that was called with that Penn State defensive line just disrupted. Defensive end slants down. There's nobody home for Boise. He's in the backfield making a play, or at least forcing Genty to sort of reroute his run. And then those linebackers were flying around making plays as well. Thought it was a really good game for Jalen Reed coming down at safety, like kind of waiting, being patient, picking his time of when he wanted to be in run support, had a sack as well. So like Danny Dennis Sutton, there just wasn't a lot that they were going to be able to do with him. And keep in mind, this is without potentially your best player off the edge that the Penn State defense was able to do this. So I feel like Penn State also on offense, similar to what you said about Notre Dame, has seen where these games were going and just kind of taken their foot off the gas and said, we can just hand the ball off, or we'll give Drew some easy throws, or we'll make sure we throw it to 44 and things are going to be okay. 216 rushing yards for Penn State, 108 for Boise. Now, Boise did outgain them 412 to 387, but I think we know a lot of the reasons why. Penn State defense, 9 tackles for loss in this game. As we talked about, they were able to penetrate, disrupt, be able to get through. Tyler Warren, 6 for 63, 2 touchdowns. Dude's got 147 receptions, 1,764 yards, 19 touchdowns in his career. The 147 receptions, all-time record of Penn State, 19 touchdowns, all-time record of Penn State for tight ends. The dude's just a machine. Like he is legitimately a machine. There's just nothing you can do about him. But it's a strong win for Penn State. And now this game against Notre Dame, I think, makes for a really, really interesting matchup, and we'll preview that one a little bit later in the week. If you need to know about where to get jeans, where to get denim, it's Blue Delta. Blue Delta jeans, the most comfortable pair of jeans you will ever wear. Go to bluedeltajeans.com. They can fit you virtually. Gift cards are available. You head over there to Oxford, let them fit you in person. You're not going to want another pair of jeans. I'm telling you, they are that comfortable. They are that great. Go to bluedeltajeans.com, see what they can do for you. Just check them out and tell them you heard about them right here on Cube Show. All right, so let's go to Texas, Arizona State, which ended up being a pretty good game. I feel like some people, not a lot of people were out there telling you they thought it could be competitive and would be close for different reasons. But I have real questions about Texas after this game. I have real concerns about Texas after this game. Now, the description we gave you on Skattebo in this offense was that he makes them right so many times, even when they're wrong. And this was a perfect example of it. So they come out, they're trying to run some gap scheme stuff. They're trying to get out on the perimeter. They toss it. They're running some screens to him. And some of it's working, some of it's not. Sam Levitt did a great job, Arizona State quarterback, of keeping plays alive, moving around in the pocket, finding guys downfield, avoiding sacks, and just keeping those plays alive. Now, he didn't have a touchdown pass. Skattebo did, but he had 1 interception. But still, without some of the stuff that he did, they're not even in this game. 3 for 222. I thought he wasn't exceptional, but he did a lot of the things that he was going to have to do for them to go win this game. Skattebo was unbelievable. 30 for 143, 2 touchdowns, rushing. He throws a 42-yard touchdown pass. He was 1 for 1, 8 catches, 99 yards. Like, leading receiver, receptions, yards, second leading passer, threw the only touchdown pass of the game, leading rusher, most rush attempts. I mean, just the dude was a warrior, and he's awesome. But I thought the perimeter stuff, Texas showed pretty early. Our safeties can come down and play that. Our linebackers can be able to get outside of that. Our edge defenders, Ethan Burke had a good game. Like Barron Sorrell had a good game. They're going to be a problem. So what does Arizona State do? we might not be able to just bully you off the ball, but we know we're bigger and about as bad as you are. So they start running duo, which is a downhill sort of focusing on all your double team plays. And Skattebo, great patience where he would just kind of wait. And usually a linebacker would play it over the top and he would cut back and hit it and all of a sudden find some yards. They turned more into the north and south team late with the ability with his patience to force the linebackers to be wrong. And then next thing you know, he's finding yards. Had to complete a couple passes to do it. Had to get some help from Texas to do it. Got some 3-and-outs. But next thing you know, I mean, it's 17-3 and they're finding a way to crawl back in that game. Texas, obviously, the big fourth down conversion from Quinn Ewers late, just for the season, a massive throw, a massive catch, a huge play. But we'll go to some of their struggles offensively here in just a moment. When you looked at the totals in this one, 39-31, Texas gets the win in overtime. 29 first downs for Arizona State, 17 for Texas. Arizona State, 510 to 375 total yards. Rushing, 214 to 53. So you can see why there are some issues there. Now, 10 penalties for Texas, I get it, but 37-54, the TOP for Arizona State. Those are the things that we talked about were going to happen. Control the tempo of the game, run the football successfully, find some Texas mistakes. They got almost all of those. It's just they couldn't negate the explosive plays later when they were able to find a way. Texas come back and win this game. Quinn Ewers, I thought he was good, and then he kind of tapered off, and then he was great late. 20 of 30, 322, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Weisner goes 18 for 45. Jaden Blue, 4 for 4. And the rushing numbers, 30 for 53, not really because of a bunch of sacks. I mean, Quinn Ewers had 6 for 1. So that didn't even pull all those off. This is where I'm concerned now about Texas because they've been great when Weisner and company have been going. And I think what Arizona State showed you is that if you could come up and just play physical football and try to knock these guys backwards a little bit, life is going to be very difficult. Now, how A&M and a couple other teams weren't able to do that with the personnel they have is a big question mark, and you wonder how and why. But Arizona State added late to the box, was able to take that run away and kind of force this game into Quinn Ewers' hands. But you got some nice catch and run plays from Golden, from Gunnar Helm, from Ryan Wingo, from DeAndre Moore, which all of those were huge. And the catch and run game has been huge for Texas this year. That was big on how they were able to get back in this thing. My concern is just that maybe not reading things correctly on defense. Because here's the other part about the Texas defense. From a pass rush situation, they won their one-on-ones. The edge defenders, Sorrell and Burke and company, they're getting home. It just couldn't get the quarterback to the ground. And that's something to me with the linebackers not playing things exactly the way that they should have. If you don't think this next team is going to steal your eyes and create space and get you out of the spot you're supposed to be in, I got another thing for you. So it's a nice win by Texas. It's a great job coming back and finding a way to get this one. However, there are some real concerns that come out, and it probably has a lot to do with who you're playing, the hottest team in the country in Ohio State. Matthew Golden, 7 for 149, a touchdown. I thought he was great. Thought Jahdae Barron had a really nice game outside for the Texas defense. Taft had a good game. Those safeties are going to be huge this time around when they play Ohio State again. Trey Moore was good off the edge. He did get 2 of those sacks. They had 3 sacks, but I'm telling you, they were in position to get 9, and they didn't get them. Arizona State got 3 and had 9 tackles for loss. So I just felt like the fight brought to the line of scrimmage when Texas was on offense was probably more so won by Arizona State. And that's a problem moving forward. You cannot continue to let that happen. But Texas gets to win. They're going to move on. Bert Auburn was also a problem. 1 for 3 on field goals. Had a chance to put that thing away, be done with it. But the red zone offense, we've also been talking about that for the entire season. I just feel like I left this game looking at it saying, man, Texas gets to win. You're moving on. That's great. But it's sometimes you leave a win with more concerns than what you had originally, and that's kind of how I felt about this one. But they get the win in 2 overtimes. They're moving on, and they will play the Ohio State University. I was wrong on this one again, Ohio State fans. I apologize to you. You dominated Oregon. I thought Oregon and Dylan Gabriel, the way they were playing, would go win this football game. But I would ask even the Ohio State fans that are either royalty in the North or cover this team or know this team or root for this team, all the guys that wanted to, backtrack and, use my audio and tell me how dumb I was and the things that I said and how I'm a clown and I shouldn't be in this business. How much have we seen this year? Ask yourself that. Tell yourself that. Like this defensive line collectively playing this way, how many times have we seen it? All right, I'd love to know the answer because I don't feel like I've seen this group playing this way consistently for very long. Has this group been playing this way the entire year? I hadn't seen that. Have we seen Chip Kelly going out of his way to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith in different ways for multiple games in a row this year? Not that they hadn't thrown it to him, but doing some of the creative stuff that they did against Oregon, I hadn't seen that consistently for the entire season. It's been up and then it's been down. Like you go to the Nebraska game, defensive line out of control. Indiana out of control. Akron out of control. But then there's some other games where they just kind of disappear. Michigan, Oregon the first time. So it hasn't been as consistent as it's been these last 2 weeks for many points in time during the season. And if they stay that way, nobody's probably going to beat them because they got multiple guys up front that can be a problem. And whether it's JT off the edge, whether it's Tyleik Williams inside, whether it is Cody Simon on pressures, they got guys you can't do anything about when they're on and when they're going. Ty Hamilton inside is another one. Jack Sawyer off the edge. So, and they were just ripping, man. Like Oregon's tackles had a hard time. I thought Oregon got on different levels offensively, and it was a big issue. And that's because I thought Ohio State did a good job trying to take away some of those quick throws. Then you make Dylan Gabriel think, and it's like, And that hesitation would cost them because then the pressure's getting there. I didn't think there was a great commitment to running the football from this Oregon offense. 28 carries for minus 23 yards. A lot of those came on sacks, but Jordan James was 7 for 14. And maybe just because of the score getting out of hand early, you had to get away from that. I know that's probably a real portion of it. But I give the Ohio State defense credit, man. Like they flew around, they made plays, they got into the backfield, they got Dylan Gabriel off his spots, they forced him to turn the ball over. Yeah, they made a little comeback late. Trayshawn Holden had a couple of big catches, but consistently this Oregon offense was never even close to what it had been for most of the year. And then defensively, what's really wild is when you go watch it, you've got guys up front that are getting, like Jordan Burch got some one-on-one wins. Multiple defensive linemen. Derek Harmon got a couple of nice wins, and it didn't matter because Chip was so far in his bag of stealing the eyes, creating space, motions, movements, false reads. He was splitting the field on this Oregon defense, and there just wasn't anything they could do about it. They were lost. And there's a couple of clips that I posted on Twitter, like still shots from the end zone copy where it's 15 yards to either side before there's a defender near a ball carrier. And I'm talking about an elite ball carrier, like a Jeremiah Smith or a Travion Henderson. So Chip now has that coming back with some of the downfield stuff to a receiver who's essentially unstoppable and a quarterback playing out of his mind. Can they do it for 2 more games? Yes. Based on this entire season, will they? History probably says no. But they're hot right now, man. And they are absolutely on fire in every way imaginable. When I watched it live, I thought the offensive line was great. When I watched it back, I was like, meh. I thought the middle 3 were okay. I thought the tackles were a little sluggish. Right tackle was he was on his face and on his knees a little bit too much. Like he got off balance a pretty decent bit, but it didn't matter because they got the ball out and they got the ball east and west, and they took advantage of things that Oregon wasn't there to defend. Plain and simple. They got them out of position to even be able to defend who had the football. It was just that easy. And you got a receiver that's unstoppable, a quarterback that's throwing accurate balls, and all of that led to just an absolute blowout. I mean, this thing was 34-8 at the half. So Ohio State's on fire right now, man. And they're pushing the ball down more regularly than I feel like they have for a lot of this season. They're playing pretty physical up front. Defensive line playing collective football, physically active. Linebackers behind them making plays. And you got running backs that can run through you. You got tight ends like G blocking his ass off again. Like it's a lot of pieces that are playing a high level right now for Ohio State. Will Howard, 17 of 26, 319, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Ohio State, 41-21. They go to 13-2. Oregon also finishes 13-2. Gabriel, 29 of 41 for 299. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Oregon running backs ran 15 times for 21 yards. It's just not enough. Jeremiah Smith, 7 for 187, 2 touchdowns. The kid's unbelievable. I mean, he's the most NFL receiver, or NFL ready receiver in college football right now, right this very second. So just an unbelievable performance, and it was cool to see. I did want to give you guys one other one, though, before I let you run. We had the first responder bowl, North Texas and Texas State, which both teams absolutely gutted by the portal. Different guys coming in. Like the starting center had not played a snap this year, and a couple bad snaps. He had to move, and then the guard comes down to play center. The tackle was gone to the portal, a true freshman tackle on the other side. But Drew Mestamaker got the start for North Texas at quarterback, and we said it accurately on the game. He has not started a college football game in his life. The last football game that he started was in 9th grade on the B team, 9th grade team. So the B 9th grade team, that was the last game he had started. You'd sit there and go, all right, you're throwing to a freshman receiver. One of them was his teammate, by the way. Your top 2 receivers are out. This thing's probably going to be a blowout. Like this thing's going to be ugly. It ends up being a great game. It ends up being an awesome game. And you give the coaches a ton of credit for the way that they coached it and the way that it worked out. 30-28, Texas State ends up getting the win. But Drew Mestamaker goes 26 of 41, 393 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. We talked to him. He's like, listen, I've been waiting my turn. So, I mean, I'm good. This is my time to start. I've been waiting on this. Loves his teammates. Peterson, his right tackle, kind of took him under his wing. Miles Coleman, his receiver, played with him in high school, so they knew each other. He played some safety in high school because he just wanted to get on the field. I mean, it's one of the stories in college football that everybody needs to know because we see so many guys that haven't played that immediately leave. He had a kid transfer in going into his senior year in high school and beat him out. Most kids probably give up playing quarterback at that point in time. Throws for 393, runs for 55, had a 70-yard touchdown run. He was unbelievable. He was awesome. Texas State was just a little bit better. And they had Jordan McLeod back on offense at quarterback who set a bunch of school records. I think the first Sun Belt quarterback in a long time to go for back-to-back 3,000-yard seasons. Lincoln Pear, his tailback, awesome game. He was the MVP of the game. But give J.G. Kinney and Coach Morris a ton of credit for how they handled that. I think the longer layoff helped them both, but I had to get Mestamaker into this show. A guy that had not started a game since his 9th grade year, and he goes out there and throws for 393 and has a 70-yard touchdown run. And also wasn't phased. He was getting hit. He was standing in the pocket. He knew he was going to get hit. He was throwing accurate balls. Like this kid, he might end up being a baller and did not start a game on the varsity team in high school. Wild to think about. All right, so we will preview the next 2 matchups in our next edition, and we'll talk a little bit more college football playoff of what we think is going to happen, match these 2 teams up, how they're going to take place, how it's going to go. We got Texas, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl on January 10th. We've got Penn State, Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl on January 9th. I'll be at the Orange Bowl doing pre- and post-game radio for SiriusXM. So I'll be covering that one for you. A lot to talk about, a lot to get to with it. I'm excited about that one. I have my hesitations about Ohio State and Texas, but we'll share all those on the preview show brought to you by Prize Picks coming up in a couple of days. Appreciate our sponsors, Wickles Pickles, Wickedly Delicious. Please take care of them. Also, Blue Delta Jeans. And we'll be back on Tuesday with the preview show of the semifinals of the college football playoff. 3 out of 4 coming up later this week. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe if you haven't. Push subscribe right now. Press like. We've also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get yours. Tell your friends about us. Did not know that so many band members were fans of the show as well. Had a couple guys on the North Texas band said, hey, love Cube Show. Now, they did admit, we heard about you on Pate's show, but love Cube Show now. Got a Georgia member of the band, came out and found me, said hello to him. Had the picture taken with him, talking about Josh's show. He listens to the show. So we appreciate all the college bands out there tuning into the show. Thank you very much. We'll be back in a couple days.